Good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the Old Bridge Planning Board meeting. If you'd all stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic
for which it
stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Dawn?
Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Planning Board has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by prominently posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the municipal clerk. Roll call. Mr. De Palma?
Here.
Mr. Renna?
Here.
Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Mamakis?
Here.
Mr. Marucci?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Mr. Lenning?
Here.
Mr. Pink?
Same thing for Ginsburg and Breyer. It has never been the standard that you have to recuse yourself in cases that involve.
Mr. Pink?
Here.
Mr. Petty?
Here.
Chairwoman Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Sardillo?
Here.
Ms. Sawant?
Here.
Is anybody else hearing background noise?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Please turn off your TV or anything that is in the background.
Okay, I think we're okay now. Okay, we have the minutes from October 6, 2020. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Second, by Mr. Payne. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Chairwoman Cannon?
Yes. Okay, Bina, did you want to explain this resolution or what it's?
Actually, our attorney will explain that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman. This is a resolution that our office prepared. It is for the board's consideration and showing compliance with the new regulations that are expected to be adopted. They're pending adoption from the local government services from the DCA with regard to, and have also been enforced through a local finance notice that has been issued by the local government services with regard to compliance with holding remote and in-person meetings during declarations of emergency where it prohibits physical attendance at a municipal building. Essentially the COVID. What happened is much earlier in the pandemic, we believe it was back in late spring, the DCA was empowered and directed to come up with some guidance for municipalities to conduct virtual meetings. Unfortunately, it took this long to come up with those guidance. For some municipalities, this has become kind of a headache because they had developed their own way of operating, and now they have to change it, which has been working. It's not necessarily a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, but not technically in compliance with the pending regulations. Here in Old Bridge, what we're doing currently is in compliance with what we need to be doing moving forward. So we're in good shape for holding virtual meetings. But when we do move back to either in-person or some type of hybrid of in-person and virtual meetings, we do have to make sure that we're in compliance with the new regulations. So what my office has done for all of the boards we represent and a modified resolution for all of the councils and municipal bodies that we represent, we have prepared these resolutions to help guide the boards and governing bodies to comply. It's a resolution that would be adopted by each board or governing body that sets forth what those requirements are that make it in compliance with the regulations. For us, the main points are, one, that we are in compliance as we currently hold these meetings virtually. We are doing everything that needs to be done moving forward, so we really don't have to make any adjustments. When we do decide to move into physical, we have to make sure that there is a protocol in place that we either are able to house the number of people that can attend and meet the guidelines, meaning, a minimum 10 feet apart, and social distancing and so forth, that whatever's in place at that time. If we can't, then we either have to hold it hybrid, being virtual, part virtual, part in person, so that everyone can participate. And as well, we would, or we'd have to find a new location where we could house everyone that would be expected to attend that type of a meeting. It's important, even more surprising with boards versus governing bodies, is because we are acting as a quasi-judicial function, and we do actually take testimony, we take cross-examination at times. So it's very important that we do follow these guidelines no matter which way we go. The only other kind of note change from our current operation would be, is not for our hearings, our quasi-judicial hearings on applications, but for general public comment, we have to allow the public to submit comments in advance in writing if they wish to do so. And then those can be read into the record during the general public comment period. With regard to the testimony and cross-examination, that still has to follow the normal protocol. Witnesses have to be sworn in. So that does require live testimony. You can't just submit something in writing, but for general public comment, you're allowed to do so now under the new regulations. And that's what this resolution attempts to accomplish, is just to set forth what this board's requirements would be moving forward, so that everyone understands it and that we make sure that we're in full compliance and can't be held in violation of the regulations or the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay, so I just read the verbiage that's on our sheet?
Yes, that would be sufficient. We can read it by title. Then there is a roll call vote for adoption of this type of a resolution.
Okay. So resolution of the Old Bridge Township Planning Board adopting emergency remote meeting protocols, procedures, and requirements for public participation at remote meetings. So does anybody have any questions or comments regarding that? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Marucci.
I'll second it.
Who was that, Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renna,
Yes.
Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Pink,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Cannon.
Yes. Okay, council referral, Lawrence Parkway and Route 35 area need investigation presentation, and that's Vina is going to do that.
Good evening, board members. So in August of 2020, towards the end, when Old Bridge Redevelopment Agency had its meeting, we've been looking at various areas in the town for redevelopment, or areas that have a potential to be redeveloped. And you all know that at the last planning board meeting, I came in, made a presentation on Old Madawan Road. I have finished working on that study, and it's currently being reviewed by our attorney. So this time I wanted to bring up Route 35 Lawrence Parkway intersection, that area which was also recommended by the council that planning board conduct an area investigation study on this area. Now, I will just put up the area map first so that you can see which area I'm talking about. right here. So now this is our Route 35, Highway 35, Lawrence Parkway. As you all know, this is Old Bridge commuter parking lot. This is the recreation use that was created. And again, it's a township owned recreational facility. And this is Hoffman's Pharmacy. So basically, we're looking at this area. The boundaries of the area are McKinley Avenue and Sunset Avenue to the southeast. That's Sunset and McKinley here. Lakeview Avenue to the northwest. And then Ravine Avenue and Sunset Avenue to the southwest. Majority of these parcels are located in the EDO1 zone, the Economic Development Opportunity Zone. It used to be the CN zone prior to us rezoning it to EDO1 zone. And some of the parcels that abut this street here are in R5 zone. This area is easily accessed by Route 35 and County Road 689. It also has NJ Transit bus stops within this area. So there's one bus stop right near Hoffman's Pharmacy, and there's one right across this street. So I'll just take you to the next slide. The area comprises of 49 parcels, 25 residential properties, 13 commercial properties, 8 public properties, one parcel that is House of Worship, one parcel that is owned by the Old Bridge Municipal Utility Authority, and one parcel that is vacant. I'll take you back to the boundary map actually. This is the library, which has been closed for quite some time now. The firehouse is right here, closer to Ravine. There is a church and a daycare right at the intersection of Lawrence Parkway and Ravine. This huge parcel here, which all of you know is right next to the Dunkin', has a zoning board approval for single family homes, but the approval was almost 10 years back and we have not seen any development. This property here has a strip mall, but as you must be already aware, there have been a lot of vacancy of stores within this strip mall. This area actually is characterized by smaller lots, which actually have obsolete layouts. There is no room for parking. Some of them actually park right along the right of way, especially when you see this parcel here, which contains Lisa Pizza. There is parking right within Lawrence Parkway, which is really dangerous, and that is of a concern. So this entire area has been recommended for redevelopment, and at the next planning board meeting I will be coming with the area investigation study for Old Matawan Road, and then the following meeting will be an area investigation study for Lawrence Parkway. Now this area is within the smart growth planning area. So it lies within the metropolitan planning area, where based on our state's policy, infill development or redevelopment is highly encouraged. These two red spots here that you see on the map, those are the two bus stops. It's bus route 131, and I believe the other one is 817 that traverses, yes, bus number 817 that traverses through this area. And 131, bus number 131 connects you to Old Bridge commuter parking lot, from where you can change to bus to New York City. And then what you see in this red circle is the quarter-mile radius. That is the walkable distance based on smart growth planning principles. This area is actually great for infill development because we already have municipal parking lots, we have recreational facilities, we have an old abandoned library building within the area. So there are amenities already within the area that could encourage infill development. Now, going to some of the criterias, these are the criteria for redevelopment, where criteria A talks about substandard building conditions within the area. Criteria B talks about abandonment of commercial and industrial buildings. C, public land and privately owned land that has remained vacant. So we know that there are few parcels within this area that are vacant, that have vacant stores as well. Criteria D, which is faulty design, obsolete layout, deleterious land use that cause detriments to the public health safety. Then criteria E, which is lack of proper utilization. And then, and in fact, F that talks about natural disaster. So if there is a parcel that is 5 acre and more, then criteria F applies. Criteria G is urban enterprise zone. This area is not within the urban enterprise zone, so criteria G would not apply. H is consistency with smart growth planning principles. This is a criteria that applies to all of the properties within the area. The next is the rehabilitation criteria, because now this study area has quite a few residential properties. It's important to include the rehabilitation criteria. And the criteria talks about criteria 1, it's deteriorated or substandard condition. If the condition of the house is not great, then this one applies. Second one, more than half of the housing stock is at least 50 years old. I have noticed that many of the houses that were built within this area meet this criteria too. Criteria 3 talks about vacancy, abandonment, or underutilization. There are few commercial properties within the area that have vacant stores, and so this criteria does apply. Persistent area of property tax. Fifth is environmental contamination. This is important because there are properties within the proposed redevelopment area that has contaminated properties. I know of at least 2 auto-related uses on properties that have known NJDEP contamination. A majority of the water and sewer infrastructure is 50 years and older and is in need of repair. We have been in touch with OBMUA to investigate and find more information on this aspect. So now the benefits of this area. Benefits of the redevelopment rehabilitation criteria. One thing I want to stress, just like the 105 Old Matawan Road study area, this is a non-condemnation plan, which means that the township will not exercise power of eminent domain. So in other words, if somebody wants to retain whatever use they have and don't want to develop the property, they will be able to do so. We will not be taking away anybody's property, or we will not impose anything on those properties. Now, in the past almost 10 decades, you must have noticed, or you must have read, that waterfront redevelopment has been on a forefront. And many of the townships that have waterfronts have gone the redevelopment route, because redevelopment is a very effective tool when it comes to revitalizing areas, or they promote or spur economic growth within these areas. So once you have an area designated as redevelopment and rehabilitation, it typically attracts development. It encourages economic growth. This actually, I'll go back to the actually map for a minute, because I just wanted to bring out one more thing, that this area here, which all of you know, has been a part of lead contamination mediation for the past few years. And Old Bridge Township has been working with multiple agencies to come and find common consensus. It appears that there will be a resolution met soon. So in which case, starting or looking at these areas that can be redeveloped, this is the great time to do that. I feel that with the available infrastructure with transit, with having bus stops there, the waterfront, which is a lovely asset, I think the area is ripe for development and we should take a look into it, make it a destination place, or make it right now when you come to the waterfront, there is no activity, although we have the recreational facilities. So this is our chance to redevelop and make this area better. So again, going back to some of the benefits, that redevelopment designation will act as a catalyst and will revitalize and spur economic growth in this area. Also, it will encourage development of vacant parcels or vacant buildings. So if there is development that comes in, it will start spurring growth, or it keeps passing on. So it will enable proper utilization of land. There will be increased ratables, and it will improve property values, promote sustainability, and also encourage safer mobility options. This area is just a portion. So once we have an area designation, we will keep moving in sections along Route 35 to see how we can improve that area or revitalize the entire corridor. So this is just a beginning. Once we go through the redevelopment process and a redevelopment plan for this area, I will be moving on. And that is the intention of the Old Bridge Redevelopment Authority as well. And I know Steve is right here, so I would like him to chime in too.
Most definitely. Yes. Being on the planning board for so many years, even before I worked here in the town as the economic development officer, can you, Vina, or both of us, just give a synopsis of economic development as opposed to development? Because I don't want it to be construed as we're going to overdevelop this area, put in all kinds of housing and all sorts of that. And the reason why we're looking at taking this area and revitalizing it. So that's a key point that we need to make, that it's not going to be overdeveloped. We're not going to be placing in the area that we just showed more housing and apartments and such like that. So an explanation of the smart growth area and what we're looking to do there as the planning board and as a township.
I mean, right now it is really in an infancy stage, because we still have to go through the entire area designation. We have to first determine whether the area meets the criteria or not, and then come up with a redevelopment plan. However, because this is the waterfront, and we already have our municipal parking lot, we have recreational facilities, there are some vacant buildings, vacant properties that have potential to be redeveloped. It could be an area which where you have commercial component with some residential component, so that they balance each other. So whatever the needs of those residences are met through the commercial activity that goes on the corridor. What I notice is, for now, Route 35 to some extent is disadvantaged, because there are a lot of driveways. There are a lot of residences that have driveways opening into Route 35. It's a high-speed corridor. We can, utilize those properties better. We can have some sort of commercial activity that will also attract people from outside, because Route 35 actually brings in people from outside, not just the people who live in that harbor area. So to me, it is more like a destination place too. So I think sky's the limit. We have to be very cognizant of the fact that there are residents there, but at the same time, we have to look at the overall planning principles, overall we have to create a vision for that area and see what the township would like to come in those areas. But it's a great place. If to name some of the towns, and I don't want to misquote them, or I don't want anybody to be overwhelmed. But for example, I remember almost 20 years back, I lived in Harrison. It was a completely different town. And now with the train station, they had the transit oriented component too, but at the same time, they had a little waterfront, and they started capitalizing that. They have a few restaurants, on the waterfront. They have some residential along the waterfront. They have created parks, walkways. So we have to see how we want to see the waterfront. There is Jersey City, which also developed their waterfront, but which is a completely very urban setup. So we have to see what fits us and our community.
Understand. Now, I know that quarter-mile radius that you have circled, after Industrial Lane or Industrial Drive going south, we do have some really like abandoned buildings.
Right.
But it doesn't go down that far at this point in time. I assume, as you said, we're going to look further down the line and also go north. As you said, I mean, there's investment taking place. Hoffman's Pharmacy actually was the one who built the shopping center there. So, you know, that's taking the area from a little blighted section, making that better. The marina is doing a lot to get it up to really nice standards, a nice location. So I think we're on the right track from the standpoint of, you know, looking at the corridor. And that's the vision's been for a while, to get that to be a destination location, really.
Right. And like I said, it's a huge corridor. So we will have to look at it in sections and, you know, accomplish what we want to accomplish. But we can't look at the whole area because there'll be a lot of properties. This area itself contains like almost 50 properties.
Yeah, so many years ago also, I don't remember when, there was a whole plan on 35 to reconfigure that whole area around Hoffman Drugs and make it more accessible. I don't even remember the particulars about it, but we had a lot of opposition from the residents and others in the area. So I think whatever we need to make sure that we incorporate them into the process from the beginning, somehow, representatives or whatever, because we went, I think, we went pretty far along the way to get this okayed and get, I don't know if we had funding for it out, but anyway, it got thrown away because there was a lot of opposition to it. And it was really more the circulation pattern. It didn't have to do that much with the actual facilities and so forth. But that area needs to, I mean, it's such an awkward situation of how you get to the Old Bridge parking area and get out of there, you know, going behind the store. And it's just, it's not a very, you know, it needs to be made more user-friendly.
Not efficient.
Yeah, it's not efficient. And also, when I've been down there, which hasn't been that recently, but there's a lot of people coming down to that area and the parking, you know, is really not sufficient. So they're parking up on Shoreland Circle and some of the, you know, and the streets are one way. So that makes it, so I think we need to take into account, and I know there is parking further down in the actual waterfront park area, but I think that has to be looked at and maybe better signage, or, you know, we need more spaces to accommodate some of that, because I'm sure it's the residents, I don't know, it would seem to me it would be bothersome because they don't have, a lot of them don't have driveways and they just park, you know, on the street. So they're competing for spots.
Actually, Barbara, just, I mean, one thing I want to bring out, this is my observation. Many of that properties, the residential properties, especially within along Route 35, they're all zoned for R5, which means that the minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. However, there are so many zoning board applications from that area that go each year, because most of these parcels are only 2,000 square feet or 2,500 square feet. So obviously, when somebody's trying to build a house on it, it is going to be non-conforming, will require an floor area ratio variance, will require variances when it comes to setbacks and stuff like that. So, I mean, this the study will also enable look at the zoning aspect of it and maybe create a new zone. And again, like I said, this is a non-condemnation plan. So it's not we're not trying to snatch away, or we're not taking anybody's property. So they could still continue to do what they're doing. But at the same time, I have noticed that these majority of them are undersized lots. So this could help us create an overlay, or not overlay in that sense, an overlay, but a new zone that makes them conforming, or helps them consolidate some parcels and create developments on them.
Well, as many of us know, that those were vacation homes back in the day, in the 20s and the 30s. So that's why they're that size.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
No, I think as we look at that area, right, we look at what's happened over the past 8 or 9 months with COVID. People are leaving the densely populated urban areas, coming to suburban areas, as we've seen the real estate in just our town and the surrounding towns have kind of exploded. People want to really stay closer to home, right? They want to utilize what's in town. This is a great opportunity for our township to bring more economic development down into that area, right? Get the folks down in Lawrence Harbor what they've really needed for years, right? Let's get them more amenities, what based off of, a smart development plan, not looking to put high rises and stuff like that, really just looking to put what's right for the area and what's right for our township, for not only the residents, but also from the economic development standpoint for the town.
Yeah, I think also that, I was here before the whole waterfront was developed, and prior to that, there were all sorts of things that were being thrown out as to what to do, like a marina, one closer up. And, now that the park has been developed, and unfortunately, there's still some areas that need to be taken care of because of environmental issues. But people are coming down and using it, the walkways and so forth. So I think we just have to take into account how do we service those people that are already coming into the area, and better service them and make it a really good experience, and the parking and some of the amenities that we're talking about. Because we've got a big chunk of it that we dealt with, that the whole park area along the waterfront is really quite lovely.
So from the economic development standpoint, I travel down there a lot to visit the businesses and sort of on Industrial Drive to hand out whatever we need to hand out for COVID and items like that, just to check on them, stop in the marinas. But do see during the day a lot of people down there, just walking along the paths. And so that's why that destination, I think we have the perfect timing for this to move it along.
Especially recently, right, Steve? We've seen a large increase of folks coming down there, and that's really, this is a way that we can kind of help solve some of even the parking issues down there.
Yeah.
We've had that come in front of council, where our residents down there have really had issues with folks parking on the street and things like that. As we look to develop these areas, we can look for, better parking situations for the folks that are utilizing the areas to kind of get away from those residential streets, to really allow the residents to use those streets.
And then also, Eric, and also touching on Mayor Cannon's point, is we have to get a better way for the people on the westbound side of 35 to get over to the other side, because it is a dangerous intersection there. Well, there's two of them, so I don't know how we do that, but to get them over safely. I think some of them drive over, but then there's no more parking spaces because there are other people there. So kind of what I see.
Yeah, and redevelopment, prior to council, I was on the redevelopment agency as well. The redevelopment areas is a powerful tool that the township could utilize to really get what we as the council, we as the boards, as well as what the residents really want down there, right? We're the ones who are going to be able to dictate to the development of what needs to be there, as opposed to someone coming to us saying, I want to put up X. We're giving them the plans of what we want, and then they kind of come and try to fit what's necessary within there. So this is definitely something that I believe will be a windfall for the township, as we come through this process.
One more last point. on our redevelopment agency. 3 of the commissioners on the redevelopment agency live in that area. So, they have skin in the game and they represent that community. So it's really good.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Um, I think this is a great opportunity for the township to showcase Lawrence Harbor. I think Old Bridge is so big and diverse that people don't even realize it's part of Old Bridge sometimes.
Right.
So I think it's a great project. I also appreciate the Old Mattawan Road project. I like to see it, spread out throughout town. And I like the phased approach because we can show the residents this little area that we worked on, improved it, and then we can continue down the 35 corridor, but if you try to do the project too big from the beginning, it might lose steam. And then, 20 years from now, we'll be talking about this again. So I just want to thank Vina for everything she's done so far with it. And, looking forward to seeing the progress.
Also, do you know, Vina, is that what was serving as the police building down there? Is that
So
being used for anything?
the police are still in it.
Oh, they're still in there?
Mhm.
Oh,
The
okay,
beach area down the end on the northbound end by the bridge.
right.
Yes,
Oh, because I thought it was vacant for a long time and then it wasn't being used.
I guess it was, I think, but they're in there now.
Oh, okay. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, do we open up to the public, Vina, to see if anyone?
No, this was a discussion item,
Okay.
so there is no public.
Ms. Chairman, what we'll be doing is, as we're doing for the other one, we will be advertising for an official public comment presentation. So this was more of a presentation just for the board, but we will, under the redevelopment law, we have to advertise. We'll hold an official public hearing at another time where then the board will act on it if it so chooses.
Okay. And I think it would be good, I mean, depending on what's happening with COVID and stuff, if we could maybe even have some kind of meeting down in the area. I don't know if that's possible or not, with the restrictions we're under now, but that may be something along the way that we want to think about.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you, Vina. Got a lot of exciting things to look forward to.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a continuance. 10-2020 PRD Management Corp F, Major Site Plan Preliminary and Final. They want a continuance to December 8th, but Dawn, I understand there's a problem with that.
Yeah, we're moving them to January 5th, 2021.
Okay. So we need to take a vote on that. And they will have to give further notice
Correct.
to all the residents or adjoining properties. Okay, so do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. Marucci, second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Renner. Roll call, please.
Mr. De Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Renner, Mr. Renner, Mr. Lauer,
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Mr. Lenning,
Yes.
Mr. Pink,
Yes.
Mr. Petty,
Yes.
Chairman Cannon.
Yes, I just have one question back to the Lawrence Parkway, Route 35. Is the planning board going to be involved on a regular basis, or we just get sort of peeks at what's going on?
With the Lawrence Parkway and the Route 35 study.
Yeah,
So now the next step would be that I will prepare an area investigation study, come and present it. So you will get a report from me prior to the hearing so that you can go through what criteria have been assigned for each of these properties. And then once the planning board votes, they look at the criteria, they vote on the study, it's sent back to the council. The council then directs the planning board to write an area and a redevelopment plan. And the redevelopment plan is the real meat of it, in which you will have bulk requirements, design standards, what permit uses do you want to permit. So that will again come back to the planning board, and the planning board actually votes on the redevelopment plan. And once the planning board votes on the redevelopment plan, if the planning board approves it, then it's referred back to the council, and the council adopts an ordinance that brings this redevelopment plan into effect. So it's a long process. Typically, in my experience, what I have seen is the planning board approves a redevelopment plan and something that is, acceptable to the town. And then once the plan is adopted, I have seen in many of the urban communities that developers start reaching out to the township. And they will say that, listen, we can do this, but we want this density, or we want this square footage. And sometimes these redevelopment plans are tweaked afterwards. So there is an amendment, because there is obviously COA component. So if at that point, when the actual development is happening, if we are in a state where we need more affordable housing and we need to negotiate, or we need to, just give you an example, we need a parking garage there. So the developer might say, okay, if the township wants a parking garage, then give me X amount of extra units, or give me X amount of commercial space, but right now your plan doesn't support it. And then the attorney reviews it, everybody reviews it, and maybe there are tweaks. Or sometimes the township says, no, we don't want to change anything, this is what we want, and this is what we are going to stay with. So then maybe another developer comes in. So typically that's how it works.
Okay.
So, but the planning board is very much involved. They are the ones who really approve the plan, and they make recommendations to the council. Once the council thinks that, after the council gets the approved redevelopment plan, there are times when the council makes recommendations. So they say that, okay, we agree with the planning board, however, we want to tweak this a little bit, or we want to add these design standards. And then it comes back to the planning board again amends it, and it goes back to the council. So it's a process. But there is, everybody is involved, yes.
One other component is the redevelopment agency is in the mix there.
Yeah, they're in there somewhere. Okay, very good. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, I have a motion to adjourn to our December 8th meeting. I have a motion.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
It's a pattern here, me and Marty.
Okay, roll call. John?
Yes.
Mr. Renner? Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Petty? Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Well, have a good Halloween, and we'll see you on the 8th.
Good meeting.
Great.